Meeting to order for Community Board 2's November general meeting. Just as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. And so with that, I'd like to welcome everyone to this evening's meeting again. We're going to move and proceed with the agenda as was distributed. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda for this evening.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Gordon, second by Ms. Janner. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Next on the agenda, item number 3. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from October 13th? And if so, are there any noted corrections?
I've noted that Barbara kindly shared comments ahead of time to the board office.
Thank you. Seeing no other corrections or comments, I recommend if anyone should have comments going forward, if you just would send them to the board office and we will definitely make a note of that. And so absent of that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from October 13th.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Gonzalez, second by Ms. Freibush. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? So moved, thank you. Item number 4, nomination slate for board officers for calendar year 2022. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Brandon Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Singletary. I want to give a special thank you to Mr. Quint, who's been a great resource in this process. And I think everybody knows a great person to lead us and advise us of things here at Community Board 2. In my capacity as nominating chair, it's our practice and a requirement for me to announce the nominations and take any further nominations at tonight's meeting. Going to go over some of the things that were previously circulated to all the members of the board at the in the notice, that this meeting is the only time for nominations. The bylaws do not permit further nominations, and only candidates nominated here will be eligible for election at the December virtual meeting. There is no requirement for nomination other than being a board member. Board members may nominate themselves or may be nominated by other board members. Any candidate, however, must consent to the nomination. Any board members were instructed to make it known to me, the committee chair, prior to the meeting tonight, that they were intending to run, but will also give an opportunity to hear any additional nominations from the floor. Once all nominations are closed, any candidates for contested races would be allowed to make a 3-minute speech if they so choose. Thereafter, a question and answer session is provided in the bylaws will follow. From here, I'm going to commence with announcing the nominations for tonight's process. First, for the office of chair, I have received 1 nomination for this office. That is from Lanu Singletary, and I have received no further nominations. Are there any other nominations for the office of chair? One more time, any other nominations for the office of chair? At this time, I will ask that a motion be made to close nomination for the office of chair.
So moved.
Move to close.
Moved.
Seconded.
Okay, I saw Mr. Jordan and Mr. Cohen. Apologies if others made motions, but perhaps we could record it that way. Mr. Quint, must I take a vote in any manner other than
No, it's not a debatable motion. You're just going to ask the board to vote yes on closing nominations.
Okay, so a vote yes will be closing nominations.
And you conduct the vote. You just ask for a vote.
All right, well, I think we're at that point. At this point, could everyone in favor of closing nominations for the office of chair, please so indicate, raise their hand.
Agree.
Excellent. Could anyone who votes no, please say so audibly so that we can record the vote? Let the record reflect I don't have any no's. Any abstentions? Please say so audibly. No abstentions. Okay, we are unanimous. The nominations for the office of chair are closed. Secondly, for the office of first vice chair, I have received one nomination. That was the nomination from Mr. Leonard Jordan. Are there any other nominations for the office of first vice chair? Any other nominations for first vice chair? Having heard none, I'm going to ask for a motion to close nominations for the office of first vice chair. I see Mr.
moved.
Cohen and Ms.
Mr.
Feibush. Mr. Dew, I'm sorry, you're a little bit slow. I'm going to give it to Mr. Cohen and Mr. Feibush, but I appreciate your enthusiasm. Any discussion or anything further before we vote? All right, I'm going to ask everyone in favor to please raise their hand or so indicate that they're in favor. Yes, to close
Yes.
nominations. Could anyone who's opposed please say so audibly? Let the record reflect none. Anybody who abstains, please say so audibly. Let the record reflect none. Great. We have closed the nomination for the office of first vice chair. Thirdly, for the office of second vice chair, we have received one nomination for this office, and that nomination was for Barbara Zahler-Gringer. Are there any other nominations for the office of first vice chair? Any other nominations? Apologies, second vice chair. I want to be correct about this. At this time, I will ask that a motion be raised to close
Motion.
nomination.
Motion to close.
Who is that? Who made that?
Sid.
Sid, I thought that was you. Thanks.
Second, Irene.
All right. Well, several people had their hands up, but I heard you, Irene, so I'll give you the second. With no discussion, I will ask everyone in favor to so indicate that they're in favor of closing nominations for second vice chair.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody who's opposed, please so indicate audibly. Let the record reflect none. Finally, for anyone who abstains on the office of second vice chair, closing nominations, please say so audibly. Let the record reflect none. So the nominations for second vice chair have been closed. Finally, I'm told I have to give a joke at this point per Mr. Quint's protocol. We have the thankless position of secretary, for which we are very grateful for the hard work that's involved. For the office of secretary, we have received one nomination. That nomination is for Jessica Thurston. Are there any other nominations for the office of secretary? Any other nominations? This time, I will entertain a motion for closing the nominations for the office of secretary.
So
I see
moved.
Ms.
Move to close.
Feibush, and I saw Mr. Gordon. So Ms. Feibush and Mr. Gordon, with no discussion. Could everyone who's in favor of closing nominations from the office of secretary, please raise their hand or so indicate?
Aye.
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 Great. Could anybody who is opposed to closing nominations for the office of secretary, please say so audibly? Let the record reflect no one. Finally, for anyone who abstains for closing the nominations for the office of secretary, please say so audibly. Let the record reflect none. Thank you, everybody. I believe we've closed with our full slate of nominated candidates. First, Mr. Quint, did I miss anything? Uh-oh, Mr. Quint's on mute.
Not,
so we're all
not
doomed.
one thing.
Okay, thank you. I want to congratulate everyone who's been nominated. We will proceed with the elections at the December meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And I want to say a thank you to you for taking the torch from Mr. Quint. And Mr. Quint, thank you for being the coach. It was wonderful to see your online coaching as we speak. So it's fantastic. But Brenda, you did a fantastic job. I'm glad that we're, getting more people comfortable with more roles within the community board so that we have at least some form of transition of knowledge. So thank you to both of you for an excellent job. And then as I move forward, I don't want to be too presumptive, but thank you to all of the members of Community Board 2 for, by de facto, your vote of confidence that myself, Mr. Jordan, Ms. Alec Ringer, and Ms. Thurston are performing in a manner that you feel is worthy of us maintaining the seat again, or you just think we're crazy enough you didn't want to tell us publicly that we were crazy for taking the seat. Either way, thank you. So we'll take that as is. Moving on, agenda item number 5, committees for action. Once again, we have the chair for the Health, Environment, and Social Service Committee, Mr. Smith. And so with that, we'll turn it over to you, Brandon.
Thank you very much. I'm going to present 4 items for action tonight from our November 3rd Health, Environment, Social Services Committee meeting. I'll give a full report on this at the executive committee, but I know we had an eventful meeting with a presentation on opioids, which was very interesting. We've also had 2 town halls on a specific establishment and a very well-attended town hall on a homeless shelter at 1 Hoyt Street this past Monday, where I'll also report on that at the executive. But I did want to thank the board office once again for their support at that town hall, as well as everyone who attended, and Ms. Thurston for taking the minutes there. For the health committee, I'm excited to announce that we now have a co-chair, Ms. Nicole McKnight. I'm excited to work with her, and along with Ms. Thurston and Ms. Church, we have, I think, a really dynamic leadership team now in the committee. Proceeding with our items, we had 4 liquor licenses that were all unanimously approved. So I'll do the best to give a description of them, and we can perhaps take the vote as a group, but certainly happy to address if need be. First, we've got 61 Bergen Street, which is entitled Talia Beer Inc., also known as, or formerly known as 61, I think it was called 61 Local, but it's down around Bergen and Atlantic. This is a brewery.
Bergen off Smith, not off Atlantic.
Apologies, you're correct. Bergen and Smith. My knowledge was corrected there. I appreciate that, Sid. It's a application for manufacturing on premise, they're going to have a outdoor area which will close at 10 p.m. and we discussed how it seemed from the application that the neighbors hadn't been contacted, but that there was it was corrected that the management of the next door neighbors had been contacted. There was no and that there was a belief that the neighbors had been notified about this location. There's no upstairs neighbors at the location. It's going to be closing 11 p.m. Sunday to Thursday indoors and midnight on Friday and Saturday. The hours are actually a bit earlier than the prior establishment, Local 61. So we had a discussion about their hiring, and at the end of the discussion, we agreed to support this application by a margin of 900. Next, we had an application for an adjustment of hours at the outdoor portion of a location that is at 55 Water Street, which had just come before us a couple of months prior. The location is known as Purple Fat LLC, and the issue was very simply that the outdoor hours we had agreed to were previously 10 p.m. For a sidewalk cafe, and we had asked the applicants to lower the hours to close earlier at 10 p.m. because Water Street is a very narrow street in a residential area in Dumbo, and we didn't have any concerns expressed by members of the community about it. This was at the last meeting, but we felt because of the nature of the street and because of the concerns that have been expressed often about a lot of traffic in Dumbo, that would have been appropriate. But what this applicant told us at this meeting was that they were actually forced to move their outdoor seating off of Water Street entirely onto Old Dock Street, which is a less residential area and a less an area with less proximity to residences. So noting that there was no community concern expressed and the nature of the application was somewhat limited, just moving the outdoor area closing from 10 to 11, which is a somewhat earlier closing time for seating that based upon how our committee deals with similar kinds of applications. We agreed to approve this by a margin of 800. We had a member who left during that presentation, so that's the reason for the smaller number of people voting in favor. Thirdly, we had 852 Fulton Street, Fulton Bean Company, doing business as Ojalá Authentic Mexican. This is going to be a small family-oriented restaurant that is going to be open from 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. Sunday to Thursday, and midnight on Friday and Saturday. They do have an outdoor backyard area, which they will be closing at 10 p.m. 7 days a week. And that was something that they had specifically met with the neighboring residents and agreed on the 10 p.m. And we had discussed the hours a bit with them at the meeting, but because they had reached this agreement, we felt that it should be what they had agreed with the community. And based on the discussion that we had, and there was no community concerns expressed at this meeting about this application, we approved this one 800 as well too. Finally, we had an application for 84 Montague Street, which will now be known as Felice. You may recall Heights Cafe, which was then became Julia. This one, now the place is going to be called Felice. The proposed hours will be 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday to Tuesday, and 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. Wednesday through Saturday. It's going to be a wine bar with Italian food and background music. They're going to employ some sound protection. It's going to have that same outdoor seating that you might remember from Heights Cafe, which is within the property line. But we spoke about what kind of community support existed. There were more than 80 letters of support submitted by the community in favor of this application. So very strong support from the surrounding community for the location. Upon that discussion, we voted in favor of this one, 8-0-0. We also had 5 renewals where there were no complaints or concerns expressed. We voted to support the 5 renewals, 9-0-0. Happy to answer any questions that might exist, but that's my report.
Ms. Zeller-Gringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You didn't mention the Alamo Draft House, which is listed here.
Right.
They didn't attend.
The Alamo
Oh,
Draft House,
okay.
correct. They did not attend our meeting, but thanks for noting that, Barbara.
All right. And then I have another question. I know a while back there was an application which I think might have been put on hold because it appeared that the restaurateurs had not reached out to the community sufficiently enough. And that's the place on Court Street, which now looks like it's opening up very shortly. And I don't know did they come back? I don't remember the board talking about them again. I think it's some sort of taqueria, but I'm not sure.
So I recall that application, but since we're on items for action.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Miss-
I should have brought that later.
I kind of thought that we're going to be only taking questions for the items.
You're
that
right.
we're
I
doing action for.
apologize.
Thanks,
Okay.
Barbara. No, I
Bye-bye.
appreciate it.
Ms. Fibers.
Yeah, hi, good evening. On the 61 Bergen Street, you mentioned that there's an outdoor area. Is that on Bergen Street? Is that in front or is that a backyard area?
So I think this outdoor area was going to be in front, but my memory is kind of lapsing after all that's transpired in the past week.
Understood. It was a tough week, yeah.
So simply put, we'll get back to you on that, Betty. Any
Yeah.
other questions?
Yeah.
Hearing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to accept all of the items that were presented. Mr. Cohen, second, Ms. Zeller-Gringer. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please do so by raising your hand, aye, or either acknowledging verbally.
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Please acknowledge by raising your hand or doing so verbally. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you so much, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
And while I'm at it, let me just say thank you for you and your committee in the way that you performed on hosting the information session. You know, I don't want to have anyone to have confusion about this being a public hearing. It clearly wasn't a public hearing. We are not obligated to host a public hearing, but I think it's always valuable to make sure that information is disseminated to the community and the community has a chance to allow us to hear their thoughts. And then more importantly, in the case of this information session, the agencies and the commissioners and representatives that were on the call. So it was a long meeting. We had some technical difficulties. So I want to take my hat off to the board office for resolving that very quickly. But all in all, it was a great collaboration. Mr. Smith, you did an excellent job of leading that discussion. And I wanted to say thank you in this manner, in this format. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Lonnie.
Next item on the agenda, the next committee to report is land use. And that committee will be represented by Mr. Carlton Gordon.
Thank you very much, Lenny. First, I just want to thank
our co-chair, Dorothy Christophin, who did the minutes for the last meeting, which we had a lot, and it took over 3.5 hours. And I just want to make sure that her accomplishment and work should be noted and appreciated. We're now going to move over to the Board of Standards and Appeals application for 161 Emerson Place. It's an application that was made by the Institute for Community Living, and it's for basically units and buildings that will be used for people who need residences, and it'll be for affordable housing. It'll be 12 stories and for 101 units. The application asks for maximum floor, maximum space, and a maximum, height, that could be used for these particular area. And our committee did approve it 8-1. Now, this one may sound familiar because yes, actually the committee and board did approve a application for the same place and for the same, basically the same work several months ago. I forget, I was trying to remember when we did it, but I remember when we did do it. And that one and this one received, large community support on this one. There was an agreement that yes, these places are needed. It's basically going to be for family living, people who could not stay in a place that we were able to formally. We were able to gather families together. Families who were split apart will now have a place to live and together, not just simply scattered all around in various other places, people, couches and shelters and so forth. Now, the reason that we did the application was that when they went to the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, HPD had said that the previous application was not large enough and they wanted more than what was granted in the previous application. So this one is going to be basically 12 stories with 101 units. There'll be elevators, there'll be people on site to help, people who need help. There'll be staff all there constantly helping people, working with people, and to try to get their families together. We were pleased by the work and we're pleased by the need and the necessity for affordable housing for folks who don't have enough money to get a place and pull it together. And we again approved this 8-1. Now, do we want to take a vote at this point, or?
I'm sorry, Carl, does that conclude your report?
That includes that, yes.
Oh, I was a little shocked. I thought you were going to
Yeah.
talk about something else.
Well,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to move on to the next item, I can move on to the next item.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I'm complete to the
Okay.
entire report. Yeah.
Okay, yes. The next item, okay. Okay, I don't know if you want to handle the BSA separately from the other item. The other item that we have, yes, sorry to mess you up, Lenny. The other item is totally different. This is from the Department of Corrections, the Brooklyn Borough-based jail system. This one actually, is they're asking for what they call an interim Sally Port. Now, when I said, what the heck is a Sally Port? I thought it was some kind of alcohol or liquor that was brewed by somebody named Sally, but that's not the case. Actually, it's the doors at the Brooklyn House of Detention, while the address is given as 273 Atlantic, what we should focus on actually is the rear of the building over on State Street, which, between Adams and J Street. there will be, they call it a sally port, will be a exit, or I guess entrance, if you would call it, by which the doors, there'll be movable doors. I guess it's like a sliding door, it'll be movable doors where inmates will be coming out from the rear, of course, brought by corrections officers. There'll also be a booth manned by corrections officers that'll be placed there, on that block as well. And then there'll be another door that's going to go to the rear of the Brooklyn Criminal Court building, so that inmates will be escorted from the rear of the Brooklyn House of Detention through the interim sally port. They'll be brought over. Of course, they'll be watched also by the people in the booth, and then they'll be brought into the rear of the Brooklyn Criminal Court building. We discussed this one and we voted 7 yes, zero objection, but 2 abstentions. So the vote was 7-0-2 in favor of the sally port at the Brooklyn House of Detention.
Now that concludes your report, right, Carlson?
Yes, that includes.
Okay, great. So what I'd like to do for these 2 items is pull them out separately. And Taya, Carol Ann, and Jessica, I'd like to treat each of these as a roll call vote.
Yes, absolutely.
Is everyone prepared, meaning Jessica, Carol Ann, and Taya? We're ready to proceed with that?
Yeah, I'll read the names if that sounds good.
Okay, so I entertain a motion to accept the committee's recommendation for the application to Board of Standards and Appeals for 161 Emerson Place.
So moved.
Mr. Meyer, second. Mr. Jordan, is there any discussion on the motion? Ms. Zala Granger?
Yeah, thank you. Is this new construction or a remodeled building?
New construction.
Thank you. And is there an estimate as to when it would be up and running?
I don't recall. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks.
It'll take a while.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I will say that the Institute has a good reputation. They're doing the one that's over near the Brooklyn Bridge, that former Jehovah's Witness building, big over at the end of J Street near the Manhattan Bridge. So they have a good reputation to helping people in need and giving them a place to live.
Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none and hearing none, all in favor of the committee's recommend, I'm sorry, we're gonna do a roll call. I'm sorry, forgive me.
Yes.
Jessica, I'll turn it to you and Caroline to lead the roll call.
Okay, thanks, Lenny. Caroline, I'll just go alphabetically. Ms. Ali, how do you vote? And please note a vote in favor is in support of this application.
Yes.
Ms. Blount, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Chang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Cumberbatch,
Yes.
Mr. Du,
Yes.
Ms. Einhorn,
Yes.
Ms. Feibush,
Yes.
Mr. Ferreira,
Yes.
Mr. Flanoy,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Howell.
Same.
Abstain. I thought you said same. Ms. Hubbard coming unweary,
Yes.
Ms. Janner,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Jordan,
Yes.
Mr. Lastawecki, Andrew,
I think he's saying yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. I'm toggling back and forth, so I'm not seeing everyone's
all right.
screen. Ms. McKnight,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Morales,
Yes.
Ms. Masso,
Yes.
Ms. Policia,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Quince,
yes,
Ms. Quince,
Yes.
Mr. Smith, Brandon,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson Manning,
Yes.
Ms. Thurston, yes, Ms. Zaylor Gringer,
Yes,
great.
Ms.
I think-
Thurston, it's Zero Scala. I think I'm on as iPhone. I vote yes.
Oh,
I'm
thank
on my
you so
phone,
much,
so
Zero.
it doesn't have my identification, but that's me.
Perfect, thank you. Did I miss anyone who's here that I did not get? Okay, Mr. Singletary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Fantastic. It passes 31 to 0 to 1.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to accept the committee's recommendation for the Public Design Commission application for 275 Atlantic Avenue.
So moved, John Doe.
Mr. Du, second.
So moved.
second, Irene.
Ms. Einhorn, is there any discussion on the motion?
I have a question. I always thought that there was an underground entrance from the old jail to the criminal courts building. I know that, and I'm pretty sure that most of the people you see out there in the trucks are people who've just been arrested who are going into criminal courts. But I always thought that there was a underground a connector from the jail to the criminal courts building. Is that not true?
I can't really say that, you may be right, you may be wrong. At the State Street side, I think what you may be referring to, Sid, is that there is an incline.
No, I'm talking
Going
about an
into-
underground. I'm talking about
Yeah, I mean, I guess it
actual
goes below.
underground tunnel.
Yeah, a passage. I don't know if there is a passage between the criminal court building and the house of detention. I
Well,
can't.
I think there is, and I think it's really outrageous that after all these years, when the original proposal that instead of going underground to move the prisoners, they're going to start moving them above ground through the street. Now, it really is that it's both a security issue and a community issue that when people are moved, I don't understand why. I know the city doesn't like to spend the money, all right? But there's times and dates when things should be done for the safety of the community and everything else. And I don't understand why they're not doing it. Now they have an entrance. They have the entrance where the buses go in and out is a Sally Port. It's on J Street there, although that may be the continuation of Smith Street. All right. Why do they need another entrance to be built when they can use the entrance on the side? What is the?
So Sid,
I
let
think-
me just jump in for a second. I don't discredit the points that you're raising, but I don't know that anyone confirms that there is a tunnel. And so lack of that confirmation, these are just points that are duly noted, they're captured, but we should allow others to ask questions. So thank you.
I've had enough.
Okay, I think, this is Irene. My impression is that the existing Sally Port will be closed when they start their demolition of the old house of detention, which is why they need a different one to use during construction.
Thank you, Irene. Ms.
The
Feinbush?
request is an interim, they did emphasize that if it's on the, I guess the graphics that they presented to us, they did call it an interim Sally Port.
All right, so just for
this was not
clarification,
meant
this
to
is
be a
a-
permanent thing.
so for clarification, this is an interim Sally Port, and that was highlighted in the documentation, correct, Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Ms. Feinbush?
Yeah, I concur with Mr. Meyer's remarks. Currently, it's my understanding that they're going underground, and it does present a safety issue to the community. But now that I understand that it was stated that this is during construction, are there really going to be people living there during construction? That seems hard to believe, because they said that the place, the facility would be empty of people who are in the jail or incarcerated or awaiting trial, that it would be empty of them when they're doing this construction. So all of a sudden, if they need this interim Sally Port while there's construction to take the people who need to see their lawyers or need to go to court, this is a problem, and there should be more
I
discussion.
think
with the
these are
community.
people being brought in from Rikers Island or other locations to come to the court.
Well, then they can come the usual.
So
I mean,
I'm sorry, hold on, Betty. We're not gonna have a land use committee meeting tonight. That we're not gonna do. I think Irene gave good context. I appreciate it. Your point is a fair one. Jessica Thurston, question.
Thanks, Lenny. I really, it's not a question. I'm sorry. I just wanted to note that my understanding, what I've learned from folks working, in anti-incarceration, no new jails, etc., sort of conflating groups, is that we really should use the term incarcerated persons and not inmates. I'm continuing to learn, but I just want to share that because I'm continuing to hear that language and recommend that we not do so. That's it. Thanks.
Duly noted. Thank you. Mr. Howell?
Thank you. To my recollection, when they presented the Public Design Commission, and I believe whoever presented, that they said that it was not just people who were incarcerated at the Brooklyn House of Detention, but that people who were being brought from police precincts, that this didn't pertain solely to people who were at the Brooklyn House of Detention or were supposed, as in that it's not just people who are currently in jail, they're people who had just been arrested and were being brought to the courthouse. So the types of, or I guess, the situations of people who are being brought through the Sally Port is varied, and not just the very narrow people coming from the jail.
So just so I don't make mistakes, if you raised your hand virtually and you've asked a question, could you, there you go, perfect. Is there anybody else who would like to have discussion on the motion? Ms. Quint?
Maybe I need just clarification on the motion, but does it state that we would be approving it specifically for the interim period during construction?
They're asking basically just, well, for the construction of the Sally Port. They didn't give a specific time frame.
Well, Carlton, I guess just to expound on Ms. Quint's point, what's being presented, or what was presented and what's being now presented to this body is the construction of an interim temporary. Okay, so it is interim. How long interim is, you don't know, but it is interim, correct? Okay.
We don't, yeah.
Okay.
But our if we vote to approve, it'll be reflected as approving this construction for an interim basis. I guess I just wouldn't want it. Yeah, okay. You're nodding, Lenny. Okay. Thank you.
Ms. McKnight?
You asked my question. I wanted to know the time period. Thank you.
Ms. Gilman?
Yeah, just echoing those other comments, I'd be hesitant to give a general approval here and have it come back to bite us, where we've agreed to a post-construction Sally Port sitting there that they're not going to want to spend the money to take away. So I think I'd be in favor of a pretty explicit vote here that this is for a limited duration to be revisited upon like reasonable completion of construction, so that there's not some small amount of pending work that can keep the Sally Port up for, a decade.
All right, so remember that when I come back to you for the language, remember that. Mr. Duke.
Yeah, what's frustrating is that we are reliving this application at the full board meeting. All of these questions could have been asked if participation was happening at the actual land use committee meeting. So please, if you see something on the agenda that is of interest to you, participate in the committee's discussion, because it's really difficult when you bring these issues that questions were not necessarily asked at the land use committee meeting. So we're giving answers that we don't know. But if this is of value to you, please come to the committee meeting. It's very frustrating to hear the committee's rendition of things redone and re-questioned. Please come to the committee meeting. I'm done, Mr. Chair Singletary.
Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. I want to be really specific in the ask, because I do, while I acknowledge the comments of Mr. Du, the mantra of previous chairs, and one that I don't say all the time, but I do believe in, is work is done at the committee. But I do respect that sometimes, certain topics don't resonate with people the same way, and calendars and everything else. So that being said, I want to be real specific. I don't want to undermine the work of the committee, but there's been this consistent theme about being more explicit in the time frame or how we define interim, or maybe we highlight the fact that interim is something that Community Board 2 is keen to, because we don't want this to live into perpetuity, or perhaps have some statement made that we weren't clear. So in that context, unless there's any objection, Ms. Ali, you're on mute. You're on mute. Ms. Ali, you are on mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we're entering a period with a new mayor, and the height of the jail is still up in discussion. And so in any event, whatever we vote will be an interim, because the new mayor will have some decision based on what it's going to be. Eric Adams have already stated he's not happy with the height. So I guess some of the fears that we had from the beginning, when they first presented to us, he probably had the same. So I believe this would be interim, and yes, I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. So I want to be, again, I want to be real specific. So unless there's any objection, Ms. Gilman, if you would, could you just articulate the same wording or similar to what you mentioned earlier? I thought that was helpful.
Sure, no problem. And please feel free, folks, to pause me if I'm not spelling this out the right way. I was not at the land use committee meeting, but I would put out something along the lines of a motion to accept the proposal for a Sally Port for the duration of the construction of the Brooklyn House of Detention for use of incarcerated persons to enter and exit into the court system, or whatever building is appropriate in that framing, and for duration until I imagine, I mean, sorry, I'm paused here on duration for us, until the majority of construction has been completed, or
a permanent design is.
Yeah. I'm curious to pause here what you think, Lenny, or what folks think.
I think we can live with majority. I think we can live with the majority of construction is complete. I think that's fair, and it gives some wiggle room. But
okay,
if that's okay,
It would be a friendly amendment to Mr. Du's motion.
right? If he accepts it and we vote on it, so we were ready. We know how these friendly amendments work. But before we get to that question, I guess, Jessica, what I would ask of you is, what have you captured? I know we're trying to feel our way through this, but what did you capture? What is your terminology of that?
So I'm noting that Ms. Gilman suggested a friendly amendment to be a motion to accept the proposal for a Sally Port for the duration of the construction of the Brooklyn House of Detention for use by incarcerated persons to enter and exit the building in question, I added in question, until the majority of construction has been completed.
Okay, I think.
And I would add, sorry to interrupt, Lenny, I would add interim to that. So I said Sally Port, but making sure we phrase it as interim Sally Port
Okay, and interim Sally Port, got it.
I think that's fair. Mr. Dew, given
I
that,
I will begrudgingly accept the amendment.
thank you for begrudgingly accepting the amendment. And so what I'd like to do is now put this to a vote. And I would also like to make this a roll call vote.
Right, I'm ready to go. You
All right,
ready, Ron?
Jessica.
Okay. Ms. Ali, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Blunt,
Yes.
Ms. Chang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Cumberbatch,
Yes.
Mr. Dew,
I have to be begrudgingly yes.
can't know that. Ms. Einhorn,
Yes.
Ms. Feibush.
No,
I'm sorry, was that a no?
no, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ferreira,
Yes.
Mr. Flanoy,
A second begrudging yes.
Ms. Gilman,
An appreciative yes.
Mr. Gordon.
Yes.
Carlton, I couldn't hear you. What'd you say?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well,
Mr. Howell,
yes, yeah.
Abstain.
Ms. Hubbard coming unweary,
Yes.
Ms. Janner,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Abstain.
Mr. Jordan,
Yes.
Mr. Lastawecki.
I think he's saying yes.
Okay. Ms. McKnight,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
No, I don't trust them.
Okay. Ms. Morales,
Abstain.
Ms. Masso,
Yes.
Ms. Policia,
No.
Ms. Peterson. Denise? Okay, I'll come back to her. Mr. Quint,
Yes.
Ms. Quint.
Hold on 1 second. Denise, what's your response? Yes or no?
I said abstain.
Okay.
Oh,
perfect.
got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry, I
Thank
was
you.
on mute.
No, that's fine. Ms. Quint,
Yes.
Mr. Scala,
Abstain.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson Manning,
Yes.
Ms. Thurston, abstain, Ms. Ayler Gringer.
Abstain.
Anyone else I've missed that wasn't around for the first vote? All right, Mr. Singletary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 22 to 3 noes to 7 abstentions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, and I just want to pass on my compliments to fellow board member Doreen Gallo for planting new flowers at the Cadman Plaza Park.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you for that completion report. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right.
Next up is the chair's report. So a couple of things I want to just mention tonight. One, just in advance of the agenda item, we're going to go through the statement of district needs. I want to again compliment the office for what you'll see as somewhat of a new format and a new way that we've been collecting the feedback. Taya and Carol Ann have done a fantastic job, and you know, I don't want to shame anyone, but I do want to highlight the extra amount of work that Taya has put into the efforts to make this a little bit more streamlined and take better use of technology. And so for that, I do want to single her out and say thank you for that, but more to come there in a minute. As some of you may have heard at the beginning of the meeting before we officially started, as Mr. Gordon was mentioning, we received a letter of resignation from Mr. Eric Sproul. For those of you who served with Mr. Sproul as on the committee and on the general board, you know that Mr. Sproul was a person who was very deliberate in speech, factual, and someone who was engaged. And so while, you know, none of us, I think, hope to keep these seats forever, we do recognize when we've had great contributions from community members, and when life or decisions take them in a different way, we definitely wish them well. But I definitely wanted to take the the time to acknowledge his time of penning a letter of recommendation and being complimentary of this board. I will note that in his letter, he did echo what I've always said, is that Community Board 2 is without question the best community board in the city of New York. And so it's nice to hear that feedback from Mr. Sproul, and we wish him well. The other thing I wanted to mention is, as I kind of alluded to at the outset with Mr. Smith and the way he conducted the information sessions that we had the other day, the city on occasion, and probably more often than we care to appreciate or have to deal with, because appreciate is probably the wrong terminology, have to deal with, will sometimes make decisions and then we find out about them matter-of-factly. And so in the conversations we had the other night in the information sessions with the shelter, it was really more of an information session. As I started to get information that trickled down in different conversations that we were having, I thought it was in the best interest of the community to have the information session. And I want to thank, again, Mr. Smith, the committee, and the board office for allowing us to get together, get behind the idea, and then putting it out there. And kudos to Carol Ann for coordinating that information and getting everything together along with Kay and the board office. But it's important that we disseminate information to the committee and to the community. You know, when things of this magnitude happen, they can't just happen in the dark of night and you wake up and, you know, you see one thing that's happening in your backyard. My comments are independent about how one may feel about the shelters. I'm more about transparency and making sure that people have a chance to have their voices heard and know what's happening in their backyard. And to the extent that we can do that, we will continue to do so, perhaps on a case-by-case basis, but know that that's something that I think is important for the constituents we represent. Again, we are not mandated to have a public hearing, but no one can preclude us from having, as Brandon put it, a town hall, or as I stated, it's an information session. That's part of what our role is to provide information to the community. And again, I thought we did a great job the other night in that aspect. You should also note that while it wasn't explicitly discussed, there are plans to have a shelter at 316 Atlantic Avenue, 62 Hanson Place, and then I also believe 51 St. Edward Street. And so as we gather more information about that, we'll disseminate that and share that as well. But I don't want anyone to think that the conversation, while it's solely focused on one Hoyt and some other items that took place, you should be aware that more areas have been targeted for our district. We have requested a fair share analysis for Community District 2. And as soon as we are in receipt of that, we will disseminate that to the entire community board, not just members of the committee, because I think that's another form of information that's vital for us to understand and drill down and ask questions. We are going through an audit. All of the community boards at some point in time go through different various audits, and now is our turn, I should say. We have received preliminary information. The office and I are working to address that. I'm happy to report there's no major findings in the audit. What we've seen on a preliminary basis is the Comptroller's office not fully appreciating the challenges that we had to work through during the pandemic, and that appreciation, not having a full appreciation for the virtual environment. And so when statements are made like we haven't had meetings, you know, you can't help but kind of sit back and laugh. Like, what do you mean we have had meetings? You go to YouTube, you'll see all the meetings. So little things like that we're just trying to work through. And I think it's just more of a clarification that we're doing with the office. But all in all, I'm confident that things are moving in a positive direction. I'm also happy to report that we are, to make a sports analogy for those who are football fans, a football field is 100 yards. And I'd like to report that we are at the 98th yard line, getting ready to cross the end zone as it relates to posting the position of district manager. We have worked hard with the Finance and Personnel Committee to achieve that accomplishment, and Borough Hall is being supportive and helping us get through that. I won't say any more in case Mr. Jordan has other items he wants to mention during his report, but wanted to let you know that we are moving that process along. I want to also announce that we have a planning fellow, a graduate student at the new school. Carol Ann, if you would, what is our fellow's name?
Samantha Late.
Okay, so Samantha Late is our a planning fellow, and we're going to find more than enough work for Samantha to do. I don't think we have a shortage of work, so I think Samantha will get more than she bargained for partnering with Community Board 2. And based on my notes, one last thing I wanted to mention is, I don't know how many people were aware, but in today's various news outlets, there was an announcement of an agreement that was reached late last night on the Gowanus Canal. And so council members Levin and Lander reached an agreement. And so for those of you who may not be fully aware of the details, I recommend that you look through different periodicals. I was able to find news stories on Politico and The Real Deal. And then if you look in the chat, I believe Tay has mentioned some information as well from the Brooklyn Eagle. But just know that there has been movement on the Gowanus Canal, and I'm sure there'll be more to come and more to report on that as well. So that concludes my chairperson's report. And with that, I'll move on to agenda item number 7, which is the district office report, and I'll turn that over to Carol Ann Church.
Hello, everyone, and good night. I'll keep it short since we have the district needs statement coming up, but as everyone knows, Tan and I are holding it down. We continue to process lots of constituent inquiries. They're focusing a lot on trash pickups. There seems to be a reduction in trash pickups. And some of that might be due to reduced staffing levels. That's on the constituent complaints. We continue to grow users on our social media accounts, which, by the way, the comptroller doesn't consider as outreach. And as the chair mentioned, we are going through the process of responding to the audit, which is actually on meeting compliance. We're pretty much doing most of what we are required to do, but there's some nuances that we're not fulfilling. And I guess as we work through that, you will hear more about it at the upcoming meetings. And I believe I want to stop here so that we can move on.
Thank you, Carol Ann. I apologize to everyone under the sound of my voice, and specifically to the chair of the Transportation and Public Safety Committee. You actually have 2 action items that I inadvertently overlooked. And so with that, I'll move back up to the committees for board action and turn it over to Mr. Meyer for his 2 action items.
Well, yeah, I was actually away, so I'm going from the minutes. Brian Howard did the minutes, and John Quint chaired in my absence. I did in fact call in, but I was not able to stay on very long.
All right, so I'm sure Mr. Howell and Mr. Quint will help close the gap for you.
Okay, so there are 2 issues. One is the 9 DeKalb streetscape project, and that was in order to activate the space along DeKalb Avenue and the pedestrian portion of Fleet Street. Street trees, street siding will be added to the existing plaza and pedestrian space. The design elements include permeable pavers that can absorb water placed around the trees, movable seats, movable planters, catenary lighting on the trees, and pallets of planting that provide changing foliage for different seasons. Some of the same design elements will also be used on Flatbush Avenue. The presentation and the Brooklyn Downtown Partnership will maintain the developer JDS Development Corp. And the DOT have yet to sign an agreement but the Brooklyn Downtown Partnership plans to maintain the space. The committee John Doe did a motion to recommend that the design, present the design to the City Public Design Commission, and it was approved by the committee 7-4-0 against and no abstentions.
All right, let's move to the second item as well,
The
please.
second item is the 109 State Street. It's a revocable consent. 109 State Street is located at the northeast corner of State Street and Sydney Place. There's an existing historical encroachment beyond the property line that contains a fenced-in planting area along Sydney Place. As part of the work to create an entrance to the rear of the building, the application asks for a revocable consent to extend the existing historical encroachment north to the new rear entrance using stairs with a narrower extension beyond that to the northern property line. The DOT requires that the applicant provide 5 feet of clearance between the tree pits and the existing and new historical encroachment, which the applicant will accomplish by removing wooden tree pit borders that are not ADA compliant for the 2 trees closest to the northeast corner of the street. There was a motion made to grant the revocable, recommend the granting of the revocable consent. And the motion was approved the same 7-0-0.
Thank you, Sydney. Unless there's any objections, I'd like to make a motion on both of the items presented.
So moved, John Doe.
Second, Mr.
No.
Gordon. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, please, all in favor, please raise your hand.
Sorry.
My hand is
I
up.
had a question. I
Sure.
thought it's Sarah Scala. I thought we were talking to the person who was doing it to make sure that the tree wells were protected. As far as I remember in the motion, there was some discussion that they were going to leave them blank. And the discussion was you should actually bring them back, put some wrought iron, as most of the Brooklyn Heights tree wells have. Was that correct, Sydney? I wasn't sure. I think we discussed that.
Andrew made a motion to recommend the present design to the City Public. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Made a motion to recommend granting revocable consent with recommendation to use metal fences around all 3 trees, and that the property within the confines of providing that the necessary 5 feet of clearance for the historical encroachment and
Thank
new
you.
encroachment.
All right, thank you very much.
Any other discussion on the motion or motions? Ms. Blunt?
9 DeKalb Avenue was supposed to be just a presentation, what they're going to do around the area. And all of a sudden, they decided that they needed a letter of approval. I don't know if this is done normally, if this is how it worked, but all they was doing was supposed to be coming to tell us how it will look and this and that, and now they needed a letter of approval. So I didn't even think a vote was needed on that.
Carol Ann, I'm gonna lean on you a little bit for some clarity here. What was the application that was on the committee's agenda?
I had not been informed that they were requesting a letter of support. However, when they presented, they seemed to lean that way, and I asked for clarification. And they noted that, yes, they required a letter of support, but the application would not have been treated differently, even if we had known that ahead of the meeting.
Okay, that's helpful. Mr. Quinn, did I see you? Did you have a question or comment?
No, I was just going to say basically what Carol Ann said. When they presented, I asked the question, were they looking for us to support it? And they said yes. So that's why we took a vote. And because they're nowhere near formalizing this because they still have to enter into negotiations with DOT, but they wanted to go to the PDC ahead of that to get the framework spelled out. So we decided that we would, since everybody was in favor of the presentation, that we would give that so that they could report that back to the PDC.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the motions? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand or denote by aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Please either raise your hand, make a statement. I think Ms. Blount is opposing. Are there any other opposers? Is there anyone who abstains?
Aye.
So Ms. Cumberbatch abstains. Ms. Alagringa is abstaining. Did I miss any other abstentions? Okay, Jessica, the motion carries.
Yep, got it.
And to be clear, that's for 9 DeKalb and 109 State Street, both carry.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Letty.
Again, my apologies for missing that on the agenda. Now we'll move back down to agenda item number 8, and we'll do a brief review of the statement of district needs and budget requests. I'll turn it over to the board office to Caroline and Taya.
Hi, excuse me, Mr. Singletary, Senator Kavanagh would like the opportunity to speak as he has to go to another meeting.
Oh, absolutely. I didn't realize you were on, Senator Kavanagh. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt your proceedings. It is a busy night, but I've been enjoying the discussion for a while, and it's great to see the community board in action. I also want to add my thanks and admiration to Doreen for planting flowers, many, many flowers. I was there for that as well. So just a couple of very brief updates. First of all, thank you again to Carol Ann and Lenny and everybody on the board for all your work. A couple brief updates. First, we have a new piece of legislation that had introduced late in the spring toward the end of the last session, but we're really teeing up for next year. And it is called the All Electric Buildings Act. It is an effort to require statewide that no new buildings that require natural gas for heat, for other services in the building, or for appliances are built anywhere in the state unless there is no viable alternative to electricity. This is a big issue in Brooklyn. We know that National Grid a couple of years ago declared a moratorium very suddenly because they claimed that they had an inability to meet future demand. They are continuing to push for additional infrastructure like pipelines and vaporizers and other things to meet demand. But the fundamental fact is that we need to stop burning fossil fuels for really any purpose. And as long as we continue to invest in infrastructure that requires natural gas, we're going to continue to extract it and transport it and burn it. So the bill, which I co-sponsor with my Brooklyn colleague, Emily Gallagher, again, would end all new gas-powered buildings after 2023 and conversions of existing buildings after 2022. Again, there would be an ability for the local permitting authority to make an exception if there really is no viable alternative. But we expect that would be rare, especially in New York City. Just another thing, we spent a lot of time over the last couple of years focusing on code enforcement and ensuring that we do everything we can to make sure people have safe homes. We're taking a particular focus right now on lead as a exposure. We continue to have far too much lead poisoning throughout our state. Lead is very toxic, and we're having a hearing of the Housing Committee and the Senate Health Committee on November 30th on this topic. Anyone with an interest in that topic who wants to testify, we are going to do this as an in-person hearing in Albany. But of course, we take testimony in writing. And we're certainly interested in anybody's thoughts or concerns about that. And again, that is scheduled for November 30th in about 3 weeks. The Clark Street Station has been a longstanding conversation. We did, the November 3rd, they began the work on that. We had conversations with this board about how to address that, whether it would be a full closure or partial closure. We did an extensive survey, and many people in the community preferred a partial closure, but the MDA has decided to go forward with the full closure. We are pushing them very hard to make that as short as possible and to get the station restored and the service restored as soon as possible. I think I will stop there. I'm happy to take questions, but I know you have a busy agenda as well.
Senator Kavanaugh, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know that you have to run, but are you okay to answer, let's say, 3, 4, 5
Yeah,
questions?
I'm happy. I can do that, yes.
Okay, great. Any questions for Senator Kavanaugh?
My hand is up.
Mr.
Senator, you mentioned the Clark Street Station. Can you talk about the York Street Station? That has been a request from the community board for 20 years, since we did the zoning of 2004. Every station in downtown Brooklyn was agreed to be made ADA compliant. As of today, no station has been made ADA compliant. We have 2 stations that are half ADA compliant because we negotiated with the contractor of the building to install elevators down to the mezzanine. The MTA has not included in their bid money to install elevators from the mezzanine to the base, to the subway tracks for the platform for those 2 stations. This has been going on for 10 years now. The York Street Station, we need to have somebody assigned to make that station happen.
Yep.
We keep getting put off by the state, and it's just an issue. How can we get some attention paid to those 2 issues? ADA access remains an issue in downtown Brooklyn, and if we wish to get rid of cars, we need to have all of the subways ADA compliant.
Yeah, we held a press conference recently and sent a formal request to the MTA once again to address the York Street Station. The MTA had promised that they had done a study a while back about what the options are, an engineering study. They promised to release that. They then subsequently told us that actually they're still working on the study. They had promised us by the end of June that process would be complete. So I led a press conference with all of my colleagues, Congress and Assembly, and a sitting council member and an incoming council member, and basically numerous organizations from Dumbo and from the surrounding area to push the MTA on that. They did contact us after the press conference. They are telling us that they will have an update for us on that soon. And again, there are structural reasons to think that project is expensive, but saying it was expensive isn't really an answer. They need to tell us what it would take and how much it would cost and how we get that into a capital plan. So we're pushing very hard on that, and I do hope to have, I'm as frustrated as you are, but I do hope to have an update from them on that soon. I will note that Jano Lieber, who's now running the MTA, was the head of capital projects and had written the letter to the community saying we would have an answer by June. I spoke with him personally and pointed that out to him and told him I've emphasized that this has been going on forever and we need a real answer. So we're working on it.
Thank you, Senator. Ms. Quint?
Yeah, I'll just keep it brief. Thank you, John, for bringing it up. Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh, for hosting the press conference. And I'm hopeful that with all of the infrastructure dollars, et cetera, coming to the MTA, that can finally be a pressure point to get this into some action. That plus the 69 Adams dollars that are committed to getting it.
I should have mentioned that's an
Yeah.
your council member and others did a good job of seeding some real money.
Seeding
That
it,
won't
yeah.
cover the full cost, but it's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, and thank you, Senator Kavanaugh, for coming and speaking to us. Just a quick question. We recently heard from National Grid at the HES committee here at the Community Board, particularly about their 2050 net zero carbon emission plan. And one of the things that they noted is that one of the bases for the 2050 being the date when they're going to implement net zero is that they believe only 30 to 60% of existing buildings in that year will be using electricity. I wanted to get a sense from you whether you think that the new electricity measures that you're promoting and perhaps anything else that's going on with these efforts will make a difference in the number of existing buildings in New York City that have that rely on electricity and potentially increase that number.
I believe that I haven't heard that stat from them, so I don't want to be necessarily, but I've also had the opportunity recently, National Grid asked for a meeting with me to brief me on some of the things they're doing. And I've noted to them 2 years ago, they were insisting they needed a moratorium on gas hookups because they couldn't possibly meet future demand. That was a lie at the time. They have paid for that. They've now got this settlement that is, they're turning over a new leaf. I actually believe that they are sincerely trying to do things better now. But if we are still burning gas, if we are still extracting natural gas in the way that we do now with fracking, and we're still leaking into the environment by 2050, we're going to be living on boats if you still want to live in these neighborhoods. Like we are systematically destroying the habitability of the planet we live on. That's not hyperbole at this point. We have no time to waste, and we need, it is true that we need to find ways to produce electricity, and we're still producing electricity in some cases by burning fossil fuels, in many cases. So we need to make the grid clean and renewable, like the actual sources, but a system that burns natural gas cannot be clean in any meaningful term. It is going to continue to pollute the environment, it's going to continue to warm the globe, and we're all going to suffer around the world from that. So again, I've asked them, like, you told me you needed a moratorium instantly 2 years ago. Now I'm proposing a statutory moratorium on new hookups. On what basis do you oppose that? And they're kind of going to get back to me. We do need to find financial incentives for all this. This isn't a silver bullet, but we need to stop installing stuff that's going to burn gas indefinitely, and we need to do it as soon as we can. So if we only have 30 to 60% of our buildings electrified by 2050, like that is catastrophic. So unless they've got some other, unless you're talking about it's geothermal, that's why it's not electric. If it is burning gas, it is catastrophic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Ms. Ali?
Yeah, there's still a lot of people that use heat and oil. Will there be some kind of incentive to help those people convert their systems?
Yeah, that's the second. So the bill I'm talking about just bans it bans conversions and it bans new bill. It first it bans conversions and then it bans new. So you couldn't convert from all electric to non-all electric after the first year, and then you couldn't add new gas fired new fossil fuel fired building after the second year. We also need to find incentives, and I joined NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, in announcing a new round of money to make buildings more efficient. It's a $5 million round, and it's very nice. And I said, this is very nice, and it's a nice step forward. We need to do this on a much larger scale. And we passed the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act in 2019. It sets New York to have the strongest statutory standards in America. We need to follow through with real money. I chair the Housing and Construction and Community Development Committee. I'm leaning into the construction part of that to figure out what it will take to effectively incentivize people to not just to stop installing new gas, but to get off gas and oil. So I will get back to that, but we're very aware that this needs to be economical, that the incentives need to be there, and that we're not going to leave people freezing because they can't afford heat, and we're not going to expect people to do this, to wake up one morning and do this out of the goodness of their hearts or their commitment to the planet. We need real incentives and real money behind them. So I'm working on it.
Senator Kavanaugh, I'm mindful of time. How much time do you have? How many questions?
If you have another one, I can take another.
Okay.
I love your questions.
Okay, Mr. Cyril Scala.
Thank you, Mr. Singletary. Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. I had a question about the BQE. There's a bill on the governor's desk, I believe. I don't know the actual name of it, but it has to do with weights.
Yeah, the way if I may, I assume you're asking if and when it's going to get signed.
Yes, you read my mind.
I don't have an answer. I will say that this governor took over on short notice with like 1,000 bills that need to go to her desk for signature. They are wading through them. I have emphasized to the governor's office the significance of this bill for our community. And the short answer is bills have to be signed or vetoed by December 31st. There's not that much time left. There's usually 11 or 12 days between the day they're sent to the governor and the day the governor has to make a decision. We will send all the bills. This bill was carefully negotiated among the Assembly and the Senate and the city's lawyers. We think it's a good, strong bill. If the governor had any concerns, we could address them with something called the chapter amendment. So I expect it to be signed, but I have no guarantees. And, the governor's a separate branch, but if you are in touch with the governor's office, you can call them and urge them to sign it. But I think it's on track, but I don't have a date for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. I almost got you promoted. I caught myself.
We've had enough governors. We've had 2 governors this year already. We don't need a third.
So thank you so much, Senator Kavanaugh. I think with that, I don't want to screw up any more promotions for you. I'll let you go. We appreciate you coming to the meeting. As you know, you're always welcome.
Yeah,
and
I really appreciate it.
Candid in your answers.
Thank you so much. Okay, take care.
Take
Bye.
care. All right. So I think we were up to the statement of district needs, item number 8 on the agenda. So without any further interruptions or changes to the agenda, I'll turn it over to Carol Ann and Taya.
Okay, I'll start. So every year, the community board issues a statement of its needs and priorities. This is a charter mandate requirement of every single community board. And it could be argued that this just might be the most important thing we do. It's definitely one of the most important things that a board can do. The purpose of the needs statement is multifold, right? First off, it allows city government to look at the needs of a district and plan for it. It also goes beyond just the district. They can look at trends in the statement and so create citywide plans and initiatives. So it's really important that every year we get this statement out. One of the things that I want to address before we even get into the actual statement itself is what goes into the statement. So it should sort of be, it's a request for funding. This year, there were lots of great discussion ideas that are going to make it onto agendas. We'll reach out to the agencies. And it was great to see that thought process, but those were not requests for funding. So we'd like to have the board members be mindful of that. When the process happens again, it has to be a request for funding. It's not something to be discussed. Maybe I didn't quite say that right, but I think everyone gets what I'm trying to say with that. So this statement is used by not-for-profit providers, service providers, to assess service gaps. It's also used by developers who are coming in. It's used by researchers doing neighborhood studies as well. So what we're about to do is really important for our district. And thanks to Taya this year, who took on the whole mechanics of creating a format for us to be able to do this, yes, in the virtual world, but also to make it, easier. You know, we were able to get it done. And so I pass it on to her to talk a little bit about the process of collating it. Most of you participated, not all of you, but most of you participated. And tonight we're going to present the results, and the board will then take a vote that this is what we're submitting. And I also want to acknowledge that these were discussed at the various committees. The public was also involved in the discussions. They made their comments as well. And so this has been a sort of round robin process. Ideas coming from committee, coming from the public, being refined and guided by the staff. But this is essentially a project of the board members and our community. Taya?
Hi, can you hear me? I'm going to apologize. Just let me know if there are any issues with my sound or visual. I'm actually toggling between 3 computers tonight. We're doing closed captioning for the first time by request. We are happy to provide that service. It's just an extra learning curve tonight. So I will try to keep this super brief. I just wanted to show you, to give you some assurance really, what the back end looks like. And I apologize, I will not be able to do it on that computer. One moment, please. Please hold. Okay, are you able to see this graph? Can I get an audible? Caroline, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just take you through this very quickly. The first step was we shared with the whole board a very simple Google form where you were able to input your vote and any editorial comments for 63 proposals. These were the first 2 columns are hidden because those are anonymized. A sharp eye will notice that this starts on item number 2 because the first entry was actually just the preamble and the instructions in the survey. So your responses all got a numeric value, and we went all the way to 64. But again, because number 1 was just the preamble, there were actually 63 proposals that everyone voted on. After that, we took these numeric values at the bottom and we converted those into prioritization, right? So you'll see that now they go in descending order. And this row represents the number that it was placed in the poll. And this, let's see if we can unhide that. This is the final prioritization. And the board received by email a copy of the narrative. The part that was added, Caroline and I had a very robust powwow session today. We took each of the district needs and budget requests and mapped them to the 7 distinct service areas that the DCP uses. I apologize that this is so tiny, but there's just a lot of info on here. So briefly, the categories are very similar to the committee, to our own board committee titles, but they're a little bit different. Their categories are health and human services, youth, education, and child welfare, public safety and emergency, core infrastructure, city service and resiliency, housing, economic development and land use, transportation and mobility, parks, cultural and community facilities, and other needs. Interestingly, the line items as DCP defines it, the line items for a lot of the items specific to community boards, such as community board staffing, community board budgeting, actually falls under parks, cultural, and community facilities. I think the DCP considers community boards a community facility. So Caroline and I worked together to determine which city agency, because you can only propose a budget request to one agency. So we assigned it to an agency. We determined whether it was a capital or expense. Some of you may recall from the many, many pages of instructions, each community board is allowed up to 40 capital requests and up to 25 expense requests. So these are your 20, and you received a hard copy of this earlier. There were 29 of 40 possible capital requests and 25 of 25 possible expense requests. And then a few did fall off by the numbers. Actually, Carolyn, did you want to talk about the exceptions? Did we lose Carolyn? I'm sorry, Ms. Church, I'm not able to see your face at the moment. Can you hear me?
Sorry. Sure.
If she can't, I'll just explain that 16, we reviewed number 16 together and determined that it would be strategic to split 16 into 16A and B, because it was very clear that half of it was a capital request and half of it was an expense request. The capital portion of that request did make the cut in the capital section. The expense portion of that request did not make the cut in the expense section. And Carolyn is back with us, I think.
Yeah, sure. Can you just scroll back? Oh yeah. So we look
Mr. Church, I think you're muted.
I'm not muted. My thing doesn't say I'm muted. Can you hear me?
Well, that's
Yes,
very
we
odd.
hear
I
you.
can't hear her. Okay, I'll just explain these. The two
You're
at the
not
bottom,
hearing me?
since the original drafting of these proposals, and I think the board can take this as a signal that your thinking is timely. These two items were removed because there is already legislation passing through at the city council level or at the state level that will deal with these two issues. Carolyn, are you back?
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you,
I
Carolyn.
can't hear you. Is anyone else able to hear her?
Wait, all right, hold on. Let me just jump in for a minute.
You all hear me still?
I think we can, Carolyn, we can definitely hear you.
Okay, let me stop
I
sharing.
think some of
Okay.
Taya's technical difficulties is prohibiting her from hearing us. So Taya, can you hear us?
I actually can't hear anyone right now.
Okay, so go to the chat. Well, go to the chat. We're gonna chat. Yeah, okay, there you go. So excuse the technical difficulties, but Carolyn, we're gonna turn this back to you. I think Taya's concluded her presentation, so I'll turn it back to you.
Sure, thank you. So when we analyzed the rankings, the MTA request came out on top. And that was good in the sense that it really says that our entire district, our board believes that we should have an inclusive district, a district that makes it easy for people to travel, and that has many, many implications. However, the MTA is not a city agency. Taya, you're giving feedback. So the MTA is not a city agency, so we can include it in our statement because we have less than 40 capital expenses, but it will not be prudent to keep it as number one because it will not be addressed by a city agency. So just want to explain that. Probably should not have been in our statement. So first up, we have housing. Affordable housing is a known crisis and a priority for our district and has been for a really long time. And that is reflected here as coming out as essentially as our number one issue under capital expenses. Second, again, we've been very topical with our priorities. Green infrastructure programs, dealing with resiliency and climate change. And thirdly, again, it goes to housing, but this time it falls under NYCHA, the rehabilitation of the properties on Waverly Avenue that have been in disrepair and vacant for as long as I've been at the board. So those are our top three capital priorities. Our expense priorities are a request to DOT to do an air pollution study, an overall environmental assessment on the BQE. The next one is HPD, again, housing. Again and again, we're emphasizing what our priorities are in this district. It shows up again. Affordable housing, we're asking for a study on the number of housing units constructed since the upzoning and a comparison of the income requirements for that housing and where that housing is situated, where it's located. And I think that would be a very useful study for us. And then the one other thing I'd like to point out in the interest of keeping this short is the other 7 top items under agency. And I point these out because what happens when we go to enter it into the portal, we have to create a narrative to describe what it is we're looking at. So the top 7 under Health and Human Services is the request for mobile health, mental health clinics. Under Youth Education and Child Welfare, the creation of a co-op tech school. Under infrastructure, it comes programs to increase use of renewables. Housing, as we know, permanent low-cost housing. Under parks, a request for increased tree canopy. And what was really sort of serendipitous today is that we received an email from a community member asking the board to advocate for more tree coverage. And that's in connection to a piece of legislation that's being considered. And under transportation, the transportation's top item was pedestrian safety, the installation of accessible pedestrian signals across the district. And so that is, in a nutshell, a quick snapshot of how we see our priorities or needs in our district. Thank you. Questions are welcome.
So before we get into questions, I want to thank all of the board members for participating. Again, I think it bears repeating. I want to thank Carolyn and Taya for walking us through what I think is a more streamlined process. I also think even from a way of looking at the feedback and the different priorities, whether it be capital or expenditures or expense, I should say, that process has been enhanced, and I think it's an easier on the eye way of tracking the item. So I can't say enough to the office for the efforts to take this on. And so with that, I'll open it up for questions. And the first question I see is from Mr. John Doe.
Yes. Carol Ann, is it possible to take the word affordable and put community affordable in front of it? Because they play with this using AMI, which is very confusing for everyone except community board members and the folks who work with it. And it's designed specifically to allow the gentrification that has occurred in downtown Brooklyn since 2004. We have to get a handle on this. It continues to be used as a way, and gentrification is fine, but we have to respect the folk who are here. So we in downtown Brooklyn in 2004 actually forced all of the folk who were living in rent stabilized and rent controlled apartments out with this upzoning. So what do? We've asked city planning to come in and study the impacts, and they won't do it. So I'm glad we have that in this formula, in this particular request. How do we know that it's actually going to be done is one question. If at all possible, let's force city planning, to actually study what they have implemented in downtown Brooklyn, and frankly, what they've done throughout the city. This problem of gentrification has to be brought under control in the city. It is the reason we have such a large homeless population. There is a direct connection. The city refuses to acknowledge it. Ergo, nothing happens. So that's one item that I thought hopefully we could do a discussion with the folks who are going to get this that seriously gets them involved in dealing with this issue. We're getting little tidbits of it, and it's not a comprehensive plan to address the homelessness in the city of New York, irrespective of the homeless shelter that they want to build on 1 Howard Street.
Thanks, John. I think that's a fair point, is particularly the notion of highlighting the community aspect. Caroline and Tay, I think we can make that change, right?
When we enter the portal, we will, I shouldn't say it that way. When it sounds like Tay and I are going into space or something. But when we start entering the items, we will change some of the language actually, to fit the context. Yes.
All right. So yes, thank you. I appreciate that. That's helpful. Any other questions? All right. Hearing or seeing no questions, any questions, I'm going to say thank you to the office for that presentation, and we're going to move forward to the next item on the agenda.
You need a vote.
I do.
Yeah.
Motion to approve the
Second by Mr. Harrison. Any further discussion, or I should say discussion on the motion?
Yes, Mr. Du has some discussion about something that we did not include in this request at all: resiliency. I had asked the board office if it were possible to survey the Community 2 district to determine what kinds of impacts our residents had as a result of Hurricane Ida. But because of the staffing limitations, it wasn't possible. So we are not addressing anything resiliency in this report specifically. So my question is there anything resiliency related, drainage or whatever, that we should be asking to be examined?
I'm sure there absolutely is, and I'll say anecdotally, sewage is an issue, particularly within our district, and I know particularly within, as an example, in the surrounding Navy Yard areas, some of the places where we're underneath the BQE, particularly along Park Avenue. So I would imagine that we have an opportunity to maybe enhance some of the language in that statement. I think Taya may be highlighting a point now, but absolutely we should be able to adjust and include that or enhance that statement. Because I see, if I'm looking at this correctly, it says the city lacks resiliency post-disaster plan to assure that socioeconomic disadvantaged communities and communities of color are not disproportionately impacted during the crisis. So we do have some language in there.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing and hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand or denote by saying aye.
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 Is there anyone who is opposed? Please raise your hand or say opposed. Is there anyone who abstains? Again, please raise your hand or announce by saying abstain. Okay, great. Again, thank you all for your participation and allowing us to put forth our statement of district needs for our district. And I think I'm not over exaggerating when I say I believe it's very comprehensive. So thank you so much for everyone's participation. Next on the agenda, our elected officials and dignitaries, what I'm going to ask is if you are a elected official or a dignitary, would you please identify yourself in the chat, and then I'll ask Carol Ann or Taya to announce who's representing. And so with that, let me start by the faces that I recognize, and I'll start with Ms. NBlackshear, who's representing the Borough President.
Good evening, Community Board 2.
Good evening.
I'll try to make my announcements very brief. On October 27th, our office recruited members for the CO interview committee. This time it was for the PSA 3 commanding officer. Representatives from the Brooklyn West District Council of Presidents, the PSA 3 Community Council, and other NYCHA TA presidents were selected to go to One Police Plaza to interview candidates for the position. I was told that the committee did a very intense interview process, which went over several hours, and a candidate was selected that the NYCHA community was very pleased with. The official announcement has not come in, or the official email has not come into our offices yet, so I cannot give the name. But I could say that I believe it's Deputy Inspector Allison Esposito, who was the commanding officer for PSA 3, is now the commanding officer for the 70th precinct. Our office is also hosting a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning training, HVAC, for residents who may be considering a career as an HVAC technician. All training classes will take place virtually, and actually it began tonight at 7 p.m. If anyone is interested, I will put in the chat information regarding the training. I'm not sure if you can actually participate, but at this venture, but it's worth a try. And also you might be able to get information about future trainings. Next, on October 2nd, the Yemeni American Merchants Association hosted its first annual Yemeni American Heritage Day at Brooklyn Borough Hall. The event celebrated the cultural heritage of the Yemeni people who live in New York City, while teaching those outside of the community about the rich culture. If you are interested in this event, or you would like to reach out to the Yemeni American Merchant Association, I am putting the information in the chat for you to reach out to them if you have any questions, or if you'd like to just basically have good contact with them. Now, everybody was talking about resiliency after the storm. As we all know, on September 1st, Hurricane Ida struck the city, bringing torrential downpour of rain that caused widespread property damage to businesses and homeowners throughout the borough. Flooding was reported in Bed-Stuy, Bushwick, Crown Heights, Ditmas Park, Flatbush, Gowanus, and many other Brooklyn neighborhoods. Additionally, a 66-year-old Cypress Hill resident lost their life. While borough-specific estimates are hard to come by, state and federal experts have estimated that the storm caused more than $50 million in damage to public infrastructure and property throughout the state, and more than 1,200 residences suffered damage statewide. On September 12th, the borough president joined the Chamber of Commerce, the Flatbush Development Corporation, and representatives from the U.S. Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, along with Congressmember Clark, Councilmember Cornegie, and other affected business owners in the Flatbush and Ditmas area for a press conference to raise awareness about federal and state relief funds available to businesses and homeowners impacted by Hurricane Ida. Now, I know this press conference was in September. I may have mentioned it early. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because the deadline for individual assistance is December 6th. I'm not sure if my colleague in government is currently on this Zoom call, Dan Wiley. Yesterday, the Congress member, Velasquez, had a town hall meeting about flooding and how to get assistance. She did this as a joint venture with FEMA and other city agencies. So I'm sure if he's here, he will give a report, but otherwise, I will put in the chat relief resources that you can get. It will be a link to the New York State website where you can get resources regarding this. So that concludes my report. I only wish to close off by saying, everybody, please be safe, stay positive, stay healthy, and have a fabulous Thanksgiving. Just don't eat too much turkey, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Nan. Appreciate the kind words and the Thanksgiving well wishes. We appreciate it. Next up, I see Mr. JWatkins from the Kings County District Attorney's Office.
Yes, good evening, everyone. And I'm actually navigating for the first time 2 Zooms at the same time. So I'm using 2 devices. I'll keep my remarks short. But first of all, DA Gonzalez sends his well wishes. He is, as well as his ADAs are literally out in the field right now, including on the other Zoom call I'm on, which is for CB7 for their Public Safety Committee. So we're covering as many bases as we can to keep our residents in Brooklyn and safe and secure. As I always say, please go to our website. I was just looking on it today at our recent press releases. There's a lot of information there that the residents of Brooklyn should know about. Oftentimes there are incidents that occur, they're in the news for a day or a week, and then they go away. However, it might take 6 months or a year, but sooner or later, the long arm of the law comes down and those perpetrators of crimes against us in the community are brought to justice. And so you will see in the press releases the results of that, where people are basically sent to prison for wrongdoings and a wide range of things, no matter if it's running over people in the streets with electric bikes or cars, or holdups against people in bodegas and so forth. So please, I encourage you to go to our website as frequently as you can, and you'll see those that type of information there. The last thing is last few weeks ago before this meeting, there was a Hispanic Heritage celebration that the DA's office had. It was very well attended in downtown Brooklyn. And we always like to celebrate all of the diversity in our community. And so there'll be other celebrations coming up in the near term. And also just be on the lookout for some new developments that that Brooklyn DA will be having, particularly concerning our youth. Some programs that are very innovative that in the coming year shortly will be announced, and we really hope will help some of our young people sort of get on the straight and narrow and develop their lives through education and employment. That's all I have. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I will see you next month. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins, and we appreciate your multitasking skills. I hope you don't call the other meeting CB2. So thank you.
All right.
Next up, we have Patrick, and if I'm not pronouncing your last name correctly, please correct me, Kwan, from the Mayor's Office of Community Assistance.
Thank you so much,
Community
Lenny.
Affairs, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for having me, and good evening. Thanks for having me. So I am the new contact for CB2 at the Community Affairs unit. I am the Senior Advisor for Community Affairs. And just a little bit by way of introduction, I'm a native New Yorker, and I actually used to live in Brooklyn Heights. And also, I went to Brooklyn Tech, so I'm very familiar with the Fort Greene area and hung out there a little bit, perhaps too much. So I'll make make sure to have my contact info for all of you. So you can reach out to me on any issues that we may have. And something else that I'll also let folks know that many of you may know already, that next Tuesday is City Hall in your borough in Brooklyn. It will be at the Boys and Girls Club at the Navy Yard on Tuesday. So the dozens of agencies will be there, the commissioners will be there, the mayor will be there. It's a great opportunity for folks who want community resources, who want to speak directly to the commissioners, the senior staff, with the mayor as well, for the opportunities to be there. And I'll make sure to share some of the info in the chat box. And I hope to see you there next Tuesday. And please reach out at any time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick. Welcome to Community Board 2, and I guess in some ways, welcome back home. So we appreciate you participating tonight and look forward to having you at our future meetings.
Thank you.
I think that's all I see as far as elected officials or dignitaries. We'll come to our community partners in a minute. But again, when we get to that section, if you are representing a community partner or a stakeholder group, if you would just announce yourself in the chat, and then we'll be sure to identify you. So with that, moving to agenda item number 10, committees to report. First up is economic development and employment.
Thank you, Chair Singletary. I'd like to Bill Flournoy, Chair of the Economic Development and Employment Committee, and my co-chair is Denise Peterson. We had a meeting as of beginning of November, and at that meeting we had a presentation. That presentation was by Cammie Crawford. She has the HOPE program, Community Outreach Specialist. They have two locations, one at Smith Street and J Street, and the other one's at Hunts Point and Bronx. Currently right now, their success rate is about 77% job placement within the first 30 days, and a completion rate of the program of 82%. And right now, they basically work with about 500 New Yorkers annually. Currently right now, they have some programs I think it might be of interest to quite a few people that are about to start. They have a program called Hope Works that starts November 29th. It is a 7-week cycle, and it's a training program for individuals. It's a stipend of $50 a week, and it's the first 2 weeks enrollment is something that's after the first 2 weeks of enrollment, you get the $50 stipend. They also have something as far as sustainable in the South Bronx, it's SSBX. That starts in January 10th. It's a 12-week cycle. That's career training for construction and building maintenance. So that's something that people might be interested. You also receive 9 industrial certifications that you can attain, and also an opportunity to advance certification. They also have a youth build green collar career prep, and also New York City cool roofs. This starts January 17th. It's a 10-week cycle. The deadline to submit your enrollment or applications is December 22nd. They do horticultural, green infrastructure, landscaping constructions. It's paid hours, 25 to 30 hours per week at $16 an hour. They also have hybrid for the next 2 days, for those 2 days, on job for training. The program requirements are 18 years of age. You have to be legally allowed to work in the US. And you have to be able to attend a full-time course. And you also have to must meet drug and alcohol-free environment and looking for employment. You need an high school diploma or GED. That's not required. So what we're looking at right now is this. This is something that we've been interested in. Is from basically ground level and allows people to get in many different programs. They have a universal, basically a program enrollment. So that once you enroll, you actually have the ability to actually be able to apply to any of the programs they have once you do the one enrollment. So that's something we actually enjoyed quite a bit. I've already asked her to come back in February to present to us again. During the report, one of the things we also discussed was some things of interest. The House of Detention, what we're looking to do right now is reach out to the House of Detention because there's potential job opportunities. We're looking to reach out to the CBOs and the community partners to basically help us see if we can get jobs for those individuals once the construction begins there. And also we're looking to do work with the statement of district needs. We're looking to reach out to basically to elected officials and also the CBOs to see if we can actually start introducing them with some of the things that we believe that is current in the district that we believe is vital for our district based on the what we just saw in the district statement of needs. We're also going to be asking again this year. We actually met with all the bids in the district and asked them to tell us what their needs were and how we can help them out. We're going to probably do that again next year, both with the bids, the CBOs, and also the community partners, separate meetings to actually have them present to us and tell us what they're looking to do. And that's my report.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate the report. Next committee to report is Finance and Personnel.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Singletary. Hi, everybody. My name is Leonard Jordan, and I'm chair of the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting. We did have a meeting on October 28th. This was not one of our regularly scheduled meetings, so actually we were discussing personnel issues, and what is our usual course that we go into executive session when that happens. So I do not have a report on that for you. I can tell you this, though, that we did finalize the postings as far as the wording is concerned, and we did discuss about a little bit about interviewing. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is on November 18th, and that during that meeting we're going to have a schedule put together as to when we're available to do interviews, which I will report to the general meeting, I guess in the December, yeah, that would be the December general board meeting. That's about all that I have right now. Thank you, Mr. Singletary.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Next committee to report, Parks and Recreation.
Good evening, Mr. Singletary and members and the public at the meeting. I'm Barbara Zoller-Gringer. My co-chair is Andrew Lastawecki. Our next meeting is this coming Monday. So if you have time available, we'd love to have you there. At our last meeting on Monday, October 18th, we were very fortunate to hear from the Director of Capital Projects for the New York City Parks in Brooklyn, Chris Yandoli. He gave us an update, and there may be some of the items that we heard about that are actually in the district needs statement, but he told us just briefly to highlight a few of the items he mentioned. The Commodore Barry Park, they determined that there needs to be some remediation under this field there. So they're going to be doing that. He assured us that he did not think it was a significant problem and would not delay construction too much. They have a separate contract that's for the field. They have a separate contract to renovate the comfort station there that's fully funded and will start in spring 2022. As you've heard me report previously, a number of projects, capital projects, were delayed or did not start due to COVID. So a number of these are a bit behind. The good news is that Bridge Park 2, which is now known as Susan Smith McKinney Stewart, is under construction. There's been quite a bit done at Cadman Plaza and the Brooklyn War Memorial. The Kyler Gore, where we had the visioning session, they're now in the design phase, so we assume we'll be hearing from them in a couple of months, as is the Green Playground, and the construction for that playground is scheduled for 2023. Mr. Yandoli was very forthcoming and very willing to get back to us on questions that he didn't have the answers to at that time. And he mentioned that as to Commodore Barry Park, they are looking at alternatives to turf for the field, artificial turf, because it gets very hot in the summer. Obviously, people would like to see future renovations of the rest of the park, but at this point in time, there are no plans available because there's no funding for that. We did have another discussion with him about dog runs, and he reiterated the requirements for dog runs. And we also had a brief presentation from the New York City Bike Polo Group. Believe it or not, if you not familiar with them, they play polo while on bicycles. And right now it was very good for them to meet Mr. Yandoli at our meeting, and he's trying to help them they need a new home. And they've been using Steuben Park at the moment, but they need a permanent place. And he's working with them to try to find that. And I wanted to mention that we did recently have the unveiling of the new Spanish memorial plaque in Fort Greene Park. It was something that came before our committee, and we were told it actually took 15 years to get that new plaque there. It's really lovely, and it's surrounded by a very pretty greenery right near the memorial in Fort Greene Park. So it's always nice to see something come to fruition that our committee was involved in. And that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Last committee to report this evening is Youth Education and Cultural Affairs.
Good evening. I'm Betty Feibush. My co-chair is Dorothea Thompson Manning. We heard from the Brooklyn Public Library. As many of you know, they stopped their fines. They want to get the books back, and they feel that sometimes the fines for the overdue books prevent people from returning the books. So they want their books back, and they're encouraging especially young people who aren't going to the library because they have overdue books. They also talked a lot about the Adams Street, the new library, and we're going to be hearing more very shortly about the new Brooklyn Heights Library that we're eagerly awaiting early in the new year. So that will be a wonderful piece of architecture and new library technology and opportunities for the community. So we're looking forward to that. And I want to report that our next meeting, which is next Tuesday, which is an atypical night because of Thanksgiving. Next Tuesday, we are having a Q&A with the superintendent of District 13. He will not be presenting, so that will give us time to ask him questions about the elementary and middle schools in District 13 and the plans going forward. And we also continue to discuss and move forward on our youth council applications. So thank you, and hope to see you at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Moving to the next item on our agenda, this is where we hear from representatives from city agencies and community partners. And I'll start first with the Department of Sanitation, Richard Day.
Great, thank you. Hi, Richard Day, work on curbside composting. I'm just here to make a really quick announcement to everyone that fall leaf collection is coming up. We have one day scheduled in December where you guys can set out your leaves that you've been raking for collection by the Department of Sanitation to be collected as compost. So you should set your leaves out in paper lawn leaf bags or in unlined rigid containers on Saturday, December 18th after 4 p.m. to be collected the following day. So we ask that folks use paper lawn leaf bags, which can be provided by your district office. They can actually offer bags. They can order them through us. Or we're going to have some events within the community as well where you can go and collect leaf bags for free. We do not accept any branches or yard clippings from hired professionals. And if you want to know if you need any additional information, please go to nyc.gov/leaf collection, or feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my information in the chat, and I'll put that link in the chat as well. Okay, so really quick, but thank you for your time.
May I ask a question of Mr. Day?
So I'm going to ask that you follow up with him offline as he puts his information in the chat.
Okay, I just had a question about
Thank
composting.
you, Mr. Day. I appreciate you reporting
Sure.
this evening. So the next person we're going to call on is Mr. KLazar from the Department of Buildings. Ken, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Hold on one second. Yes. Next week, we'll be presenting at your committee meeting information on protection, what is required for protecting buildings during construction. And it should be a very interesting presentation. One of our top engineers will be making the presentation. And that's basically all I have. That's next week during your, was it Housing Committee? Land Use Committee?
So we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you for the update and the introduction. Next up, I see we have representatives from the Red Cross, a representative from the Red Cross, Mr. Richard Pirro.
Thank you, Chairperson Singletary. Good evening. My name is Richard Morrow, and I'm the Greater New York Red Cross Community Relations Ambassador for Community Board 2. Presently, there are 39 disaster relief operations being conducted across the U.S., 30 of which are in the eastern portion of our country. All of the 39 disasters are due to climate-related issues. Over the last 7 days, we have provided emergency assistance. I'm trying to get this thing over here. Emergency assistance to 296 adults and 86 children following 44 local disasters in our area. As COP26 fades out of the headlines and nations only suggesting promises of change, it is imperative that local communities take action to protect themselves. I have included in the comments section an article that is the best I could find describing the state of emergency that the world is facing. Senator Kavanagh expressed beautifully our present situation. I know our community board will be an exemplar to other community boards in our city, our nation, and the world by discussing and implementing programs that will prevent, prepare, and protect our neighbors from the calamity of climate change. The Red Cross is prepared. Help us by you being prepared. Through our virtual programs, we can help you and our community. Our courses are free. With the easing of COVID restrictions, our home fire alarm installation program is back. If you know someone who is in need of one, please contact us at our website, redcross.org, for details and to view our programs. We would like to extend our deepest appreciation to our veterans for their service to our country and wish you all a healthy and joyous Thanksgiving. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Richard. The next up, we have Ethan from the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry if I have a little background noise. I'm just cleaning the offices here tonight, and I'm also in portrait, I see, because I have my two screens up, and sorry to be coming to you in portrait, not landscape mode. The biggest thing I wanted to talk about tonight is Small Works for Big Change. It's an online art exhibit that we have running. We started this last year when a lot of artists here at the Yard were having a tough time because of COVID, and we continued it into this year. I'll tell you the Small Works part is that all the works on the website are they have to be less than 24 inches by 24 inches by 24 inches. So a lot of us here in the city have smaller apartments, or at least if you're me, and you don't maybe want to have a big work of art hanging on your wall, or a big sculpture, or a big photograph. So all these works, there's about over 60 works there on the site, over 30 artists here at the Yard. And they're also small in price. All are under $1,200, and there's a lot of ones that are even less than that, so you can get a great deal. And so that's the small work part. The big change part is that 100% of the proceeds from these sales go directly to the artists here at the Yard. And then 15% of the proceeds from the work, they choose a charity. You'll see online which charity they've chosen. And so 15% of the proceeds will actually go to a charity of the artist choice. So a great way to support local artists, invest in our creators, our entrepreneurs, our innovators here, and also make a good impact in the community. And then the second link I think Taylor will share with you, I have just 3 quick things to talk about. The first one is Wall About Design. That's a new series that we're launching in partnership with New York City by Design. It's inspired by the location here of Wallabout Bay, which is what the Navy Yard is around. And it's going to be a monthly series that explores all facets of design with a distinctively inventive and industrial Brooklyn Navy Yard spirit. So the kickoff of that series is Thursday, November 18th at 2 p.m. And so you can join us and New York City by Design on an online program and the kickoff for that. The next part is just that continuing, we have tours here at the yard. So come out for one of Turnstile's tours. You can still take, I think there's one more bike tour. There's walking tours. They have different themes, World War II, architecture, things that are going on modern at the yard. And you can also come down when you're down here for that and see the fence line. Again, that's that great vinyl wrap that goes all the way from the Wegmans to Clinton Avenue. And you get a chance to look inside our businesses by seeing the fence wrap, seeing what we're making here, the products, the businesses, the history here. And then the last one, and this one's really important because I don't know if I'll get to talk to you about it again before it happens, but the holiday market is back this year. Last year we went just virtual because of COVID, but we are back. If you went in 2019, it was at the Timber Shed on Admirals Row, which was a great location, but we are back in building 77. So that's Saturday, December 4th and Sunday, December 5th. So mark that on your calendar, December 4th, December 5th, come to building 77 at Flushing and Vanderbilt. There's going to be a lot of great businesses here at the yard selling their wares, selling their products. You'll get to see the things that are made here. And most importantly, you won't have to worry about an international supply chain to get your gift for a loved one. So December 4th and 5th is right in that sweet spot. You kind of forgot, but now you want to get it before the rush. Coming down and see us at the yard. If you have any questions about that, you can reach out to me and I can put you in touch with the folks here about that.
Thank you, Ethan. Appreciate the updates. Next up, we have our wonderful friends from the Brooklyn Public Library. So it's a group. I'll let them all introduce themselves in their own unique way.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for letting us speak. Thank you, Betty, for sharing your words about the library a bit earlier. My name is Rachel Tiemann, and I am the manager of the Brooklyn Heights Library. We are eagerly awaiting our winter opening of our new branch. We are currently located at 128 Pierpont Street in the Center for Brooklyn History, where we're offering holds pickup and book return service at this time, Monday through Friday, 10 to 4. We are doing outreach. We were just at the Brooklyn Bridge Park Harvest Festival doing a story time. We've been doing tabling and the patio in front of Center for Brooklyn History. Come over and say hello, making library cards, sharing what resources we have and what we're doing. We've also been partnering with community partners who have been doing some tabling, including New York Project Hope, offering resources for those managing emotions and big feelings coming out of COVID-19. We also are currently pitching a new series of programming through the Brooklyn Incubator Program in partnership with Veteran Voices, which is an arm of the Poetic Theater Productions. And it's You Ask, I Tell, Queer Veterans and Youth Living Out Loud, by pairing queer youth and veterans in a facilitated mentorship setting and inviting them to interview each other. Emerging insights will come full circle as poetry and spoken word pieces reveal their partners' untold stories and are written and shared. So if you or someone you know is an LGBTQ veteran or LGBTQ teen, and we're trying to gauge community interest in this program while we seek some funding for these workshops, I'm going to drop a link to the flyer that has a QR code with a link to the survey, just gauging community interest potentially in this program. And then I just wanted to share one really great thing that is going on with Brooklyn Public Library, in addition to all the other things. We have a Brooklyn Literary Audio Walking Tour. So we know that Brooklyn is a hugely literary community, and all over the borough, we're tripping over authors, right? So one way to get to know a city is by walking its streets, and another is by reading the books of its residents. And with Brooklyn Public Library, you can do both. Take us with you as you stroll from neighborhood to neighborhood. We'll tell you about the library sites along the way, where novels have been set, real apartments where the authors once lived, and the libraries that they visited. Download the AutoCast app on your smartphone to take the tour with you. If you're in Brooklyn, ours will be the first tour that comes up. If not, you just search for BPL and you'll find it. The app will tell you how to get to each location, and you can listen to the tour or read a text version as you walk. We hit Bed-Stuy, Bushwick, Fort Greene, Weeksville, with such authors being highlighted as Richard Wright, Patti Smith, Jason Douglas, Jenny Zhang, Biggie Smalls, and Jacqueline Woodson. I'm going to pass it on to my other colleagues with the Brooklyn Public Library. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tracy from the Clinton Hill branch. We are still getting questions from a lot of people who don't know that we've offered expanded library service at all our open locations. So you can come into an open branch, you can browse, you can sit down. We've got computer reservations, library cards, sign up, print on demand, reference assistance. Our public restrooms are open. And we also still have outdoor programming. Clinton Hill, for example, is still doing outside story time on Thursday mornings at 11, and we'll be doing it while the weather holds. And we're also doing virtual story time programs. We have recordings on our Facebook page, and we'll be doing virtual book discussions now that the weather is getting colder. I'll put links in the chat, but you can come into a building and use the services, with the exception, unfortunately, of the meeting rooms and indoor programming, but in much the same way that you could before COVID. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Kat.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Kat, and I'm the managing librarian of the Adams Street Library. And again, thank you, Betty, for the mention of our report to your committee recently. I'm going to share a couple quick things about programs for teens and young adults. I think I've said a lot that the Adams Street Library is now open. Come visit us in Dumbo. We're so excited to be in the neighborhood. So first of all, I want to share about College Connect. I really wish I had this when I was a teen and looking at post high school education. It's one-on-one college and career help for teens and young adults. So that means you can make an appointment and then you can talk one-on-one with a librarian who has expertise in things like finding the right college, exploring non-college post-secondary education, completing your CUNY or SUNY college applications, working on your personal essays, getting feedback. You know, that feedback from somebody who, you know, I'm so excited about this. Applying for FAFSA. I did not like that when I was a teen, and I'm still stressed about it just thinking of it. So we have this amazing free resource. So tell the teens and young adults that you know. The other thing that I want to mention, which is a great opportunity again for teens, is a program called Story Teen. We're now accepting applications for this program. I really like this program because it's specifically for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders who have an interest in going into early literacy education, early childhood education. So if they want to be a children's librarian like me and Rachel and many other librarians that you may have gotten to know in Brooklyn, you can sign up for this. Essentially, it's an internship. There's a stipend. You get volunteer service hours for your school, your program. You get resume building experience. And we, you know, libraries are open after school, so we're able to accommodate those after school hours that they need to get. So for more information, you can go to our website for Story Teen. It's one word. I also have a phone number. It's 718-230-2798, or you can email storyteen@brooklynlibrary.org. That's it for me. Happy Thanksgiving all from me, Tracy, and Rachel and Bailey, who couldn't hang on to the end of the call.
Thank you to our friends from the library. We appreciate you always being around to give us an update and useful information. So thank you. So I'm just checking this chat. Next up, I see we have a request from Irene Jana, not in the capacity as board member, but to give an announcement on Cadman Plaza Park.
Thank you, Lenny.
I just wanted to announce that the Cadman Park Conservancy will be holding its annual Veterans Day ceremony tomorrow, Veterans Day, at 10 a.m. in front of the War Memorial in Cadman Plaza Park. And we also wanted to thank all the volunteers who came out and did bulb planting and cleanups on Sunday. It was a great turnout. There were over 100 people, neighborhood people, Girl Scouts, various school groups. It was terrific. Thank you and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Irene. On the heels of Irene's comment, I don't see any other representatives from city agencies or community partners. So let me move on to item number 12, which is other board business. Do we have any other board business to come before this body at this time? I don't believe we do, just wanted to make sure.
Are we going to be voting on the new calendar tonight?
No.
Okay. Is that going to be in effect?
We're not going to do anything with the calendar until we vote on it. And so we're not going to vote on it tonight. We discovered one conflict, which we need to resolve, and then we'll bring it before everybody. So no item tonight.
So we won't know about it till December, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to make plans. Okay.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, bye-bye.
Mr. Du.
Yes, I received a notice today from the board office that the open streets is made official and permanent, and that the Department of Transportation did a survey of residents affected and got an overwhelming approval for the open streets program. The notice did not talk about any of the issues that are related to the open streets program. So we have no idea the impact on sanitation, fire department, Uber, all the ambulance services. We don't know exactly what's supposed to happen on a permanent basis now that the streets are permanently closed. So the question is, how did the community board be totally ignored for this very important initiative that has its benefits, but we haven't talked about the issues that result from the open streets program. So I'm just putting it out there. The notice was a surprise to me.
So John, thanks for that. I think it's fair to say we were all equally surprised when I saw the notice, as well as Caroline and Taya. A vote was taken by the council, as we understand it. I'm not sure what feedback was provided to the council and what led to how they took the vote. We've had different discussions with the city agencies, particularly at the cabinet meetings and borough board meetings, where we've expressed concerns with the agencies, in particular with the Department of Transportation. So what we've done, I've asked Caroline and Taya, I've submitted some questions, similar, if not covering everything you just mentioned, for some additional follow-up. I'm also wanting to find a way where there's a better balance. I'm not opposed to the program. I just think there's some areas for improvement where it can be more collaborative and not just kind of shut down, particularly some streets, where it then provides more of an obstacle for the residents who live in those streets not to get some of the services that are afforded to other areas. So just looking to find a better balance, but we will follow up once we get additional information. We just got it today, so we're still analyzing some of the information, and we'll get back to you and this entire community board with our findings.
Thank you for that. The only other quick item I had is to thank the board office for this closed caption, but to also ask, is it possible to add the countdown clocks so that when we have the public discussion, the people speaking know how much time they have left?
Yeah, we'll look into that.
The city council does it.
Yeah, trust me, I'm not. Trust me, I am not against it. There are multiple reasons why we want the countdown clock, but thanks for raising that. We'll follow up on that. I'm sure Taya, being our resident tech expert, will help us get a solution for that, and we'll report on that soon.
Thank you for that.
Sure. I don't think we have any other board business. If not, I'd like to move on to community forum. And so in community forum, this is where we generally set aside time for those who are patient enough to wait through the meeting, and it gives the board members to hear from the community. Given the hour and the way we carved this out on the agenda, we ask that individuals who have identified themselves as wanting to speak from the community that you keep your comments to 2 minutes. In lieu of a countdown clock, I just jump in and say, please, 10 seconds, and then you kind of just back it up from there. So with that, we'll start with Mr. Rothbart.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking my comments. Thank you all for your patience and hard work. Happy Veterans Day. I just want to celebrate the fact that Community Board 2 downtown Brooklyn has a unique role in the suffrage movement. The African-American women all met in Community Board 2. They met around Willoughby Square Park, now Abolitionist Place Park. They met at 205 DeKalb at the home of Sarah Smith Garnett and Dr. Susan Smith McKinney. And we want to celebrate that with the monument, as you all know, at Abolitionist Place Park, also called Abolitionist Place. We do not want a dog run. There's currently a dog run designed to go exactly on top of the tunnels that used to connect 223, 225, and 227 Duffield. I don't think the proper way to honor this history is to have dogs do their business at the exact site where people may have liberated themselves. So I urge Community Board 2 and everybody to really stand up to get more respect for that history there. We're still working on bringing 227 Abolitionist Place to repair it, and we're keeping a close tie. Luckily, there's been some good remediation there. I just want to celebrate once again our petition. I was hoping to get up to 5,000 signatures. We're still at 4,370 signatures. These Girl Scout troops have put together this petition. I think it's worth reading. Again, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate the responsibility that you have in caring for this community and caring for this important role that Community Board 2 has for 19th century civil rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, if there are individuals from the community who'd like to speak, I ask that you please identify yourself in the chat. And at this time, I don't see anyone else. So let me give it a second in case someone from the community would like to make a comment or an announcement. All right, great. I'll move to item number 14, which is a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait. I'm sorry. Before we do that, I want to have everyone reminded and give an acknowledgement to all of our veterans, those who've served in the military, and want to say Happy Veterans Day to all of you who've served in the military. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, but I will ask that if you do have a moment, just do a personal moment of silence, and let's represent and remember our good friend Tony Abelli, who dedicated his life and was a proud member of the armed forces, and he should never be forgotten. On that note, thank you everybody, and have a good evening. Get home safe, and again, happy holidays. Take care.
I abstain.
Take care, everyone.
I abstain.
We didn't have any discussion. Just keep waiting for it. You wait for the discussion and you tell me how the vote turns out.
Take care. Good night, folks.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.